Hey guys, Roman Trusser here with Mission Forge. Today guys, we're going to talk to you about shop talk. And today guys, I want to talk strictly to the guys who are looking to get started. And I want to show you or tell you 3 tools you absolutely need to get started. And then I want to give you 3 tools that's going to help making your blacksmithing hobby just that much easier. So with that guys, let's get started. So tool number 1. In order to forge or blacksmith, you're going to need a forge. Now there are hundreds of different forges out there that you can get and use. Some of them being as simple as a hole in the ground, which is what I did. I'll put a link in the description where I just dug a hole, put some air source in there with a bunch of coal, and it worked. Other types is going to be other solid fuel forges, coal forges, such as regular brake drum forge that most people like to make, which does cost money. But it's generally cheaper than buying a brand new coal forge, which is usually in $1,000 or more. Or some people will have like a sandbox forge or something like that. Another option is to go gas, which is what I have here, which is a propane forge. Now mine's a simple 2-burner forge from Laredo's Brothers. You can get that's about $185 forge. It works phenomenally. I generally only use 1 burner, so you don't need 2 burners. 1 burner on this thing gets it hot enough to forge well just fine. So if you're going to get a forge, you want to go a cheaper route. Gas forges tend to be a little cheaper and more economical. It's a lot easier to get fuel for that as well versus a coal forge, which can be a little more challenging to get the coal at times. So gas forge is not out of the question, and it's okay to start cheap. So you don't need to get a Majestic forge. Like I said, $185 for this. You can get a relatively inexpensive Laredo's Brother one for about $130. It's a single burner forge. Also there's Hell's Forge and Devil's Forge, who are pretty economical as well. So don't be afraid to get that. Now, most of these gas forges, when you do buy them, you are going to have to buy a refractory. So get like a Castrolite 30 or something like that to cover the KO wools, so you don't get the fibers. Yeah. Tool number 2, and that is going to be an anvil. Now, you don't need to start with something like what I have here, which is a 112-pound NC tool anvil. All you really need is an ASO, or anvil-shaped object. Now, this bit's going to be a little bit controversial because my beliefs is a little different from, say, other smiths who have been smithing for a long time. I kind of started over twice in my life, so I remember what it's like to start out and be on a limited budget. Now, what I did have at first was like a pin that belonged into a track vehicle, and I had that sunk into a log, and I used that as an anvil. It's about the same size as the 10-pound sledgehammer head. You can do that, and that's fine. But then I upgraded to this Harbor Freight anvil that's right here. It's this gray style here. It has China right here. It's not the Russian kind. And I've had this now for almost 20 years. The new style is a blue one, which I demonstrated on another video. Again, I'll put the link in the description below, making a knife on it from Harbor Freight. They will hold up. They're not terrible anvils. They're not great anvils, okay? There are better options out there, but they work. You've got the mass, you got everything that you need to get going, right? Yes, the horns aren't good, no perch a hole, I completely get it. But sometimes just a solid chunk of metal is all you're gonna need. Now, if you can go to a scrapyard and get yourself a big piece of metal, then by all means go for that. If you want to spend the money on something ridiculous like a railroad track anvil, which I do not like at all, there's no mass on them, they're very light, and they cost just as much as a regular anvil per pound. Not worth it. Alright, that's my opinion. But the Harbor Freight anvils are not bad. They got a lot more mass. As long as you keep the metal hot, you're not going to deface or mess up the face of the anvil. But also, if you do mess up, it's better to mess up on one of those anvils versus a nice, good quality anvil like this. Now, there's another option out there, which is off of like eBay or Amazon. It's like a 66-pound anvil. John Norwood from Old Hickory Forge, he did a review on it. Roy, I can't remember his last name, I'm real sorry, from Christ-Centered Ironworks, he does a review on it as well. Very good anvil. If you can afford a little bit more, get that. However, you can't just generally go and pick one up. You're going to order it, and you're going to have to wait for a while, maybe like a week or 2 to get it. That's really no big deal. But good thing about the Harbor Freight ones is you can go any Harbor Freight, pick it up for about 50, 60 bucks, especially if you've got the coupon and you're ready to rock and roll. Tool number 3, that's going to be hammer. Now, you don't need a fancy hammer like I have here, okay? This is a hammer, again, from Old Hickory Forge. Again, I did a review on this one. I'll put a link in below. down below. This is definitely a blacksmith's hammer. One side's got a flatter die, the other side has got a good round die on there. But I didn't start with this. I started with this hammer here from Harbor Freight. This cost me about $7 to $10. All I did was sand the handle down to get all the lacquer off, and it was perfect. I didn't even need to adjust anything with the head. I mean, like this part. I did dress the face a little bit, get all the hard edges off of there, and the same with the cross peen. And this is what you're going to want. You're going to want between a 2 and a 3 pound cross peen hammer to start with. All right, very inexpensive. You don't need to jump to getting one of these hammers. Now, later on, if you decide to continue this hobby or trade, you're going to want to get something like this, because this does make a world of difference. Having this rounder side makes having this hammer so much nicer. It makes forging so much nicer and quicker and easier. That is definitely something, but there's nothing wrong with this. I used this for a few years, and it's worked great. Now, with that being said, those are the 3 tools that you need to forge. Now, that's all you're going to need. Now, of course, you're going to need the fuel for the forge, and you're going to probably want to find some kind of stands for the forge and the anvil. They're not needed. I first kind of started out just forging literally on the ground, and that will work. It'll become uncomfortable, but that'll work. But that's all you're going to need to get started. You don't need much of anything else. I get that question a lot. What do I need to get started? A forge, an anvil, and a hammer. Boom, there you go. You don't need an expensive forge, you don't need an expensive hammer, and you don't need an expensive anvil to get started. As you learn and progress and get better later on, then you're going to want to go ahead and get yourself a better quality hammer, a better quality anvil, better forge, or even build your own forge. I usually don't recommend building forges right away, just because I spent probably about 2 months, 3 months trying to get one forge working, and I couldn't. I just couldn't get anything right for whatever reason. Avoid all that headache and the money to build a forge. Take that money, put it to buying one that's ready to rock and roll, and you're good to go. And then as time goes on, you want to mess with building a forge, you can, while you still have something to practice and use. Now, the 3 other tools I want to give you guys that's going to make your life easier as a blacksmith for a beginner is going to be this. Tool number 1, angle grinder. This is just a little 4.5-inch angle grinder that I bought at Harbor Freight. It cost about 20 bucks, 30 bucks, something like that. Very inexpensive. Now, why do I recommend getting that? You're going to have to cut things, you're going to have to grind things, you're going to have to do all sorts of stuff. And that is like a jack of all trades. You can put a wire wheel on there, you can put a cutting wheel on it, you can put a grinding wheel on it, and it's going to do all of that. I mean, because before I had that, I was using a hacksaw, and it takes a while. Alright, so that is one tool I highly recommend you get to make your blacksmithing life just a little bit easier. Tool number 2 that I recommend that you get, and it's more like a set of tools, and that's just going to be like punches and chisels and all this other stuff here. And I have more which are up there. The reason why I recommend you just buy those to start with is because unless you have the right kind of metal to make them, like a 5160 or 4140 type steel, it's really just easy to go out and buy them. Again, they're like 10, 15 bucks at Harbor Freight. They're cold chisels. I use them all the time. I've had these for years. I do have another set that I use every now and then. But real easy and inexpensive to have. And the reason why you're going to want this is that when you're doing certain things, hot cutting, punching holes, drifting holes, I should say, you know, want to cut slots or something in there, do a little ornate work like putting the veins in leaves and stuff like that, that is going to come in handy. Some people recommend you just make them yourself, and that's absolutely fine. You can, but if you don't have good hammer control and hammer technique and getting the angles just right, especially if you're trying to grind the edge down to a nice point or something like that, it becomes real frustrating, okay? So just buy them for a few bucks, and then you're going to save yourself a bunch of headache and stuff. Now, I'm not saying there's nothing wrong with making your own, because that is half the fun. But when you get started, it's nice just to have those that you can go to right away, because you're like, dang it, you know, I messed up another one. That's all right. Well, I got this for now. I can use that. So punches and chisels is another thing that you're definitely really going to want or need. The last tool number 3 is going to make your blacksmithing life a little bit easier, and that's going to be tongs. Now I got this tongs after tongs after tongs after tongs. I mean, I got so many tongs, it's unreal. You don't ever have enough tongs. I mean, you just don't. And I got more still, I just can't get them. So what's going to happen as time goes on is you're going to find that you're going to be working with small pieces of metal, or longer pieces or whatever, however thick, and you need to find a way to hold on to them. If the metal's long enough, you can hold on to it with your hand, and a lot of times people use like locking pliers, vice grips to hold them, and that's fine. But after a while, what's going to happen is they're going to fail, the rivets or something will break on them, and it's just not going to do the trick anymore. So now every pair of tongs I have here, with the exception of one pair, which I found at a flea market, this one here, I made. So you can make your own pair of tongs, or you can buy a pair of tongs. Either way is fine. But if you're going to get a pair, I really recommend just getting a V-bit pair or wolf jaw tongs. Those are really versatile tongs to have to start with. So if you're going to get any tools that I'm talking about, those are the 3 tools that I really recommend that you get. Now there are a whole slew of other tools that other people may find that would be more beneficial to them, and that's fine. You know, recommend getting files or a drill press, or getting a belt grinder, like a 1x30 belt grinder, getting various different hammers, and just so on and so forth. There's so many things out there, and that's fine. I'm simply giving you, the beginner, some of the things that is the most versatile. 3 things you absolutely need: forge, anvil, hammer, and some very versatile tools. Pair of tongs, punches and chisel set, and an angle grinder. So that, guys, hopefully you found this video helpful. Sorry about the really bright light right here. You know, but I wanted to get something out to you guys. I haven't been able to do a whole lot with this whole coronavirus thing and everything like that. So thanks for watching. If you found this video helpful, go ahead and hit that like button. If you got any comments or suggestions, leave down below. And also don't forget to hit that subscription button and that bell for more notifications. With that, guys, thanks for watching, and I'll see you later.